Final speaker for today, excuse me while I pick up a fussy baby, is Joseph Chung, who lives in Australia and is originally from Hong Kong. Joseph holds a PhD in theology from the University of Hamburg in Germany, and he's majored in the Old Testament. His current research is concerned with prophetic literature, especially post-exilic prophecy. And these days he works for the Charles Sturt University and St. Barnabas College in Adelaide as an adjunct and teaches subjects such as the Pentateuch, prophetic literature, Old Testament history and narratives, and biblical Hebrew. So Joseph, thank you so much. Please feel free to take it away.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah, good.
Absolutely.
Yes, because it's running very late, so I'm trying to do it as quick as possible. So the topic for my presentation is the old religious traditions used in the new context by the Prophet Haggai. If you would have read this short
excuse me,
book.
Joseph. I'm
Yes?
sorry. We can see the presenter view at the moment with your notes on the side of the screen.
Well, let me see. I'm trying to share the screen. So can you see my share screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. Is it good now?
Yeah, we have the whole screen with your all the slides down the left-hand side.
Okay. Let me see. How about this?
Yeah, it's the same.
Okay.
We can just go with this if you're comfortable with it, because we can see the slides.
Okay, let me try again. Sorry. I'll try the sharing again. Is it working?
Yes. Yeah.
Good. If I go whole screen, is it better?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. So now I have 6 areas to speak about. So because it's running late, I need to go quickly. There's 6 traditions I want to introduce from this book, and these 6 old traditions, 6 old Israelite traditions are connected with 6 new aspects in this little book of the Prophet Haggai. Number 1 is the Prophet Haggai, working according to the old Israelite prophetic tradition, is unprecedentedly indicated as the messenger of the Lord, or we say the messenger of Yahweh, a designation never emphasized with the same weight for other prophets. After the Israelite kingdom was destroyed in 587 BCE, Haggai was the first named Israelite prophet, and his prophetic activity can be substantially traced in the Hebrew Bible. Certainly, Jeremiah and Ezekiel were still active sometime after the people went into exile, but they apparently already started before Jerusalem was invaded. In fact, Haggai has demonstrated much similarity to these other 2 prophets, Jeremiah and Ezekiel, and you can also, if you're interested, you may read some more from other scholars, such as from Paul Reddit and Raymond Kashar, in terms of the correlation between Haggai and other prophets. But regarding Haggai, the person, we know not much about him. In the Hebrew Bible, he was mentioned by name only here in this book, and in the other book called the Book of Ezra. In contrast to the other contemporary prophet called Zechariah, he's a contemporary of Haggai. Zechariah was named as, was introduced as a son of Iddo in Ezra, in the book of Ezra, chapter 6, but Haggai himself was called only the prophet. So we don't know much about him. We can only ascertain the prophetic activity of Haggai, who actually lived in the post-exilic period in the late 6th century BCE in association with this other prophet, Zechariah. But how these two persons would have actually worked together, we are not sure. But we can be clear that it is very common for prophets in the Hebrew Bible with highly limited personal information. And clear in terms of the role of Haggai is that he's actually working in the Israelite traditions, and some more evidence will be studied and explained below. So from here, I've put chapter 1, verse 1 of Haggai, the very beginning of the book. In the second year of King Darius, in the 6th month, on the first day of the month, the word of the Lord came by the prophet Haggai to Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua, son of Jozadak, the high priest. So this is showing how Haggai has received the commission from the Lord Yahweh, and this echoes the commissioning of other prophets, confirming the word of the Lord to be given to the prophet. The main argument of the book Haggai, which is the main task of the prophet, was to change the prevailing opinion of his contemporary people regarding the timing of the rebuilding of the Second Temple. His opinion alone is different from other people at the time. He's the only voice from God. The major concern of the book is to ask the people to rebuild the temple in starting from just the next verse after his commissioning. So in Haggai chapter 1, verse 2. And here it expresses already the reluctance of the people to do the work. But the prophet, bringing the divine message from God, is speaking against the general opinion. And he was targeting not just the leaders, including the high priest Joshua and the governor Zerubbabel, but all the people. So we could imagine the opposition he could have faced. But this is similar to all other prophets in the Hebrew Bible. So like Jeremiah, he was charged by the Lord Yahweh to go to prophesy. But while he was saying, such as in Jeremiah chapter 6, he was other people saying, peace, peace. The prophet Jeremiah said, no, there was no peace. And similarly, the prophet Isaiah in chapter 6, he was also told by the Lord in his commissioning that he would face all the compositions in his ministry. Haggai looked, he's facing lots of oppositions, but he, like other prophets in the prophetic tradition, that he, of course, he did not give up. And he has used a lot of rhetorical skills in the book of, especially in the book of Haggai, to convince other people. And you may refer to Mark Boda in his research in 2000. So there's a new aspect from this prophet Haggai while he's working in line with the old Israelite traditions, that he has been indicated as the Lord, the messenger of the Lord, the messenger of Yahweh, Malach Yahweh in Haggai chapter 1, verse 13. This designation is terrific because he's basically the only prophet with such emphasis. Of course, other prophets, in the Hebrew Bible, we understand they should be able, or they should be eligible to be given this title, but Haggai is the only person explicitly named with this title. What's the reason for Haggai to be like this? There is no explicit reason, and therefore there has been a lot of research following this. And I can provide only some possible reasons, because this is a big topic to follow on. Firstly, perhaps because Haggai has employed a lot of the so-called messenger formulas, such as Ko Amar Yahweh, Neum Yahweh Zevaot. So in English, thus said the Lord, or thus said the Lord of hosts, in the book of Haggai. Of course, other prophets are using these formulas before they start quoting the speech from the Lord, Yahweh. But the high frequency, extremely high and unusually high frequency of use may contribute to the designation for Haggai to be named the messenger of the Lord. The other thing is, as we have read from chapter 1, verse 1, that in his commissioning, it was saying that Hayadava Adonai B'yat Haggai Hanavi, that literally by the hand of Haggai the prophet, that in the commissioning to a prophet, especially in the book of the 12 prophets, so Haggai is among one of the 12 minor prophets, that he is the only one to be indicated to receive the commissioning from the Lord in such way that the most special thing is that by the hand of Haggai the prophet. But why was it by the hand? There has also been a lot of discussions and research, and these may contribute to Haggai's special title as the messenger of Yahweh. But overall, it's fair to say that Haggai from old traditions portrays an extraordinary identity, the messenger of Yahweh, which other prophets shall be qualified to be the same, but have never been explicitly named. So this is the first one. The second one is that the Lord Yahweh, the God of Israel, indicated as Yahweh Zevaot, an epithet not new, but the highest frequency of use among all books in the Hebrew Bible, is peculiarly linked with the Exodus tradition, warranting his presence to encourage the people. So the term Yahweh Zevaot, so Yahweh, the God of Israel, is so often, so frequently called Yahweh Zevaot here in the book of Haggai. Now, Yahweh Zevaot, in some English translations, the Lord of hosts. The general view is that this designation is connected with a military background. And scholars such as Sigrid Kreutzer has refuted this general opinion. And Sigrid Kreutzer, I'm trying to quote from him, he views that its usage, the usage of this term is happening a lot, of course, in the so-called Deuteronomistic work, and it does not always depend on military context and the general understanding of its usage, such as in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 4, seeing Yahweh Zevaot as the mighty warrior should actually be more carefully studied with its religious, historical, and theological evaluations. And indeed, I would think that the term Yahweh Zevaot is more appropriately regarded against the background of the heavenly realm, such as in these passages. And yeah, he is the King of glory. Here, as we understand, the Yahweh Zevaot is a new emphasis in the book of Haggai because of its extreme high frequency of use. But what is special is for us to see that this title has been connected with the old tradition. In Haggai chapter 2, verse 5, it's saying that according to the promise that I made you when you came out of Egypt, my spirit abides among you, do not fear. And if you are familiar with the Hebrew Bible, you may understand that the incident of Exodus is a very long time away from the time of Haggai. So the time of Exodus, of course, is also very difficult to be certain, and there have been different views on that. Maybe around the 14th century BCE, maybe around the 12th century BCE. and so on. But the time of the book of Haggai is the late 6th century. So it's definitely the old religious tradition in Haggai, because Exodus is the extremely important event for the people of Israel as the descendants of the Lord Yahweh. But in the Exodus tradition, that the Lord Yahweh was not named, Yahweh Zevaot was not named as the Lord of hosts. So Yahweh seems to be creative in this regard. However, while most scholars would say that the event of Egypt being named in Haggai chapter 2 verse 5 here is to be traced from the Exodus tradition, the other scholar in his work recently, Abhinav, he was holding a view that because Amat and Betoch, also the elements in verse 5 that we have just read only in English. So these elements do not provide the meaning of divine presence like in Exodus, but instead the divine presence is made possible by means of prophetic activity. So basically Abhinav was thinking that the old tradition of Exodus in Haggai was not exactly correct, although the incident of Exodus has been mentioned. But what, of course, I do not totally agree with Abhinav, but what he's mentioning here is that at least he's affirming the prophetic activity of the prophet Haggai, especially when Haggai was calling for Yahweh Zevaot to be the Lord to lead the people in the experience in Egypt. Of course, is talking about the experience of their ancestors, not themselves. That the salvation from the Lord is now to be recognized from the Lord of hosts, and that's the new aspect demonstrated by the prophet Haggai. And then why? I mean, how further can we understand that Yahweh Zevaot might have been connected with the Exodus traditions? Possible clues may be traced from the book of Isaiah, chapter 19, and maybe also from the Psalm, chapter 80. So these two places portray Yahweh Zevaot, his might in Egypt and delivering his people, making implicit reference to the Exodus experiences, such as in Isaiah chapter 19. Is mentioning on that day there will be an altar to the Lord in the center of the land of Egypt, and a pillar to the Lord at its border. It will be a sign and a witness to the Lord of hosts in the land of Egypt. When they cry to the Lord because of oppressors, he will send them a savior and will defend and deliver them. So the Lord of hosts, Yahweh Zevaot, has been presented in Isaiah 19 here in connection with their experience in Egypt and the deliverance from him. The other clue may be traced from Psalm chapter 80, is not exactly mentioning about Yahweh Zevaot, but Elohim Zevaot, the God of hosts, and is also connected with their deliverance experience of the Israel ancestors in Egypt as well. Therefore, while Haggai is working in line with those Israelite traditions, he seems to be creative in some regards. Yahweh has never been referred to as Yahweh Zevaot in Exodus. This unprecedented designation appears to uphold a new emphasis from the post-exilic period. Number 3 is about the leaders. Actually, number 3 and number 4 about the leaders. That after being portrayed as this people, so the people at the time of Haggai, they were indicated by the Lord at the beginning of the book as this people. And in the course of experiencing serious crop failure, appears to be under the curses in the Deuteronomistic tradition, which relates to the storm god tradition in the ancient Near East, which is traced back to up to around 3000 BCE. The people being called the Remnants at the later part of the book highlights their new identity in the post-exilic time. So the people at the beginning of the book of Haggai, they were indicated in the divine speech as this people, Ha'am Hazeh, right at the beginning of the book to introduce, and then it's followed by the oracle of judgment to the people. So I've put the passage here that says the Lord of hosts, these people, so this is basically Ha'am Hazeh, Ha'am Hazeh say the time has not yet come to rebuild the Lord's house. Then the word of the Lord came by the prophet Haggai, saying, is it time for you yourself to live in your paneled houses while this house lies in ruins? Now, therefore, thus says the Lord of hosts. So this is also the messenger formula. Consider how you have fared. You have sown much and harvested little. You ate, but you never have enough. You drink, but you never have your fill. You clothe yourselves, but no one is warm. And you that earn wages to put them into a bag with hosts. So these are the typical conditions of curses that scholars trace back to the so-called Deuteronomistic traditions. And these are the problems that the people of the time of Haggai are facing, and they were called these people, Ha'am Hazeh. So what we have read in verses 4 to 6 is widely recognized in research as a parallel of the covenant terms of punishment in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, or they are parallel to also the book of Leviticus, chapter 26. So this is the old tradition, Deuteronomistic tradition, closely associated with the term Ha'am Hazeh. But Ha'am Hazeh, these people, while they are supposed by most scholars to be under the Deuteronomistic curses, new research from other scholars are seeing things differently. That some scholars are saying that in the Torah of the Hebrew Bible, so in Deuteronomy, building the temple is not exactly a one of the terms in the covenant. So it's not fair enough to suppose that they are really under Deuteronomistic curses. And John Kessler viewed this by means of form criticism as a response to some volitional direction on the people's part, which is at variance from the will of Yahweh and inimical to covenant faithfulness. That's the people are being punished in a way very similar to the Deuteronomistic curses. This is, according to John Kessler, in terms of form criticism, to be some volitional direction for the people. But it's still related to the covenant faithfulness, but not exactly violating the Torah. So the new aspect, still we can, while scholars are discussing about whether the Deuteronomistic tradition exactly traced in the book of Haggai, the new aspect from Haggai is that the people under curses, they were called Ha'am Hazeh. They were later called She'erit, the remnant. So we see that they were being cursed in the early parts of chapter 1, but then in just a little parts of the book, in chapter 1, verses 12 to 13, they were called the remnant. And here's a change of the relationship with God. That here in 1:12 to 13, Zerubbabel son of Shealtiel and Joshua son of Jozadak, the high priest, with all the remnants of the people, here is the term, the remnant of the people, obeyed the voice of the Lord their God and the words of the prophet Haggai, as the Lord their God had sent him. And the people feared the Lord. Then Haggai, the messenger of the Lord, spoke to the people with the Lord's message, saying, I am with you. So this is a clear indication of change, that while they were previously under curses for some time, but now as they obeyed the voice of the Lord, and that they have been guaranteed with the presence from God, and they are now not called Ha'am Hazeh anymore. They are now called She'erit, the remnant of the people. So with the implication from curses to blessings to happen soon. And God's favorable attitude towards the remnant, She'erit, happens not just from here, not just in here, but then in the following parts, in other parts of the post-exilic prophecy in the Hebrew Bible, such as in Zechariah, and also to be traced from 2 Kings as well. Number 4, Zerubbabel, the governor of Judah. So he's a royal descendant, but in the new context, under the Persian rule, he absolutely had no royal authority, but his future identity as a signet ring shall still be perceived in the Davidic tradition. So the old tradition I'm mentioning here is the Davidic tradition. And the new aspect is about his title being called being related to the signet ring. So the Davidic tradition, to put it very simple, is about the long-lasting dynasty of the King David, according to the promise from the Israelite God Yahweh. And this promise can be traced from the book. I think it's I think it's 2 Samuel, not 1 Samuel. The second book of Samuel, chapter 7. And the promise is that so the descendants of David will continue to be on the throne. But Zerubbabel, being the royal descendant, he's not on the throne. He's not an Israel king, because the Israel kingdom was already destroyed, and he's only made a governor by the Persian government, and he's a governor of Judah. And Zerubbabel would not be the first royal descendant of David to bear such title. His predecessor, Sheshbazzar, should be the first one to bear such title, and it can be traced from the book of Ezra, chapter 5. Because of the time, I'm not going to read Ezra, chapter 5. So the new aspect now is for the royal descendants. He should have been the king if the kingdom was not destroyed, but of course he cannot be a king. But the new aspect is now for these royal descendants to be related to a signet ring. So this is the promise from God at the very end of the book of Haggai, talking about the future of the people and the future actions of God in favor of his people, that God is going to make Zerubbabel like a signet ring. So God did not say that he would make Zerubbabel a king again, because this would be dangerous if Haggai would have written like that under the contemporary political environment. And the promise was only to make him like a signet ring. So what a signet ring is uncertain, but this is definitely something new in the book of Haggai, in line with the old tradition of Davidic promise. And signet ring can be traced in the other prophets from Jeremiah chapter 22. And more research and study can be traced from other scholars as well. So the title as the governor is something new to the Israelite people, especially in the prophecy under the new situation, the post-exilic time. Although they are going to restore the temple, the monarchy is yet to be re-established, and the descendant David, being the chosen one according to the Davidic tradition, is only functioning as the governor. However, the promise from God to make him like a signet ring has intensified the hope for the people. Now, the second last one, Joshua the high priest, more than simply working in the traditional priestly function, he's assumed to lead the people in cooperation with Zerubbabel. So the old tradition is, of course, the priestly tradition. And the new aspect is that this high priest, Joshua, he's doing more than being a priest. So in order to understand the priestly function and the priestly background of the high priest of Joshua, there has been a lot of comparison with the other prophets, Ezekiel. And yeah, you may trace more from other scholars, like from, again, Ramon Kasha and from Tuol and many other scholars. Scholars of and research are discussing their similarity and also their differences. And I'm trying to highlight some differences actually, because in Haggai and Ezekiel, mostly, I mean, in many places you find a lot of similarities, but the scholars are trying to find out the differences as well. That in Haggai, he's emphasizing that holiness is not transferable, but in Ezekiel, the notion about holiness is transferable. So that's one of the key difference between Haggai and Ezekiel being discussed among scholars. But we can say that more than the traditional priestly role of the Zadokites pertained in Ezekiel, Haggai has firmly acknowledged the new administrative role borne by the high priest under the new context in the post-exilic time. Finally, about the temple is the building. So you may notice that the previous 5 points are all about people, 5 different characters. And this last one is not a person at all. This is a building. This is the building, the temple. So the temple to which the future eschatological or future promise of the glory of God draws in association with the anticipated God's salvation on that day is unprecedentedly called the house of Yahweh Zebaoth, your God, and recalls the Zion tradition. So the old tradition I want to mention here is the Zion tradition, or we call this also the temple tradition. The new aspect is that this temple is being called the house of Yahweh Zebaoth. So we can find a lot of times the temple being called the house of Yahweh, but being called the house of Yahweh Zebaoth is so special in the book of Haggai. So since the well, I want to say according to Victor Horowitz, I mean, in line with other scholars in ancient studies, it was not uncommon in the ancient world that the deity instructed the selected king to build him the temple. And in this vein, the King Solomon, the son of David, finally completed it and dedicated the temple in the mid-10th century BCE. But it was finally destroyed by the Babylonians in 587 BCE. Since the first temple was built, it was extremely important in Israel, just like everywhere in the ancient world. The Hebrew Bible indicates that after the first temple was destroyed and the Israelites were taken into exile in Babylon in 587, it is Yahweh, the God of heaven, inspiring the King Cyrus of Persia in 538 BCE to allow the people in captivity to return to Jerusalem in Judah to rebuild the temple. And this can be traced in the book of Ezra, again, just in chapter 1. So in the book of Haggai, the temple tradition is of paramount importance, and this is the key basis for the message of post-exilic prophecy as well in the Hebrew Bible. So like in other ancient cultures, the temple for the Israelites is the place to secure blessings. Prominently in Haggai, to build the temple is already to secure the blessings. And interestingly, it started with the opposite, that not building the temple has incurred themselves curses. Scholars have generally supposed the blessings and curses in the Deuteronomic tradition in Haggai with regards to the state of being sanctioned by means of deficiency in the economic life and failure in agriculture, as we have read from Haggai chapter 1 from verse 2 to verse 6. Which has been mentioned above, and indeed such supposition corresponds to the weather god tradition or storm god tradition in the ancient Near East, and particularly in connection with the divine will to build a temple, such as the Gudea or Lagash in the southern Mesopotamia in around 22nd century BCE. You may read a lot of studies in this area, such as from Mayers and Mayers, but many others. As such, Haggai has employed the traditional terms in Deuteronomic theology, echoing the ancient Near Eastern storm god tradition in his arguments to warn and motivate the people to return to the God of Israel and respond to his command. This has successfully maintained the temple theology, or we can say the temple theology in the Zion tradition. But what is more surprising is the recognition of the temple as not simply the house of Yahweh, but the house of Yahweh Zevaot, corresponding perhaps to Psalm 48. Psalm 48 was mentioning about the city of Yahweh Zevaot, but never saying the house of Yahweh Zevaot. But why new expression, the house of Yahweh Zevaot? Of course, there is no explicit reason, and that's why we can do a lot of research on this. So possible reasons to be mentioned here would be that, again, if Yahweh Zevaot is to be understood from the heavenly background, in the heavenly realm, then we may trace back just from the book of Haggai that the Lord of hosts is getting ready to do something to shake the heaven and the earth. And that might be a reason that Haggai would always emphasize Yahweh is Yahweh Zevaot. That means the Lord is the Lord of hosts, because he's going to do a lot from the heaven and to give impact on the earth. So to summarize this point is that Haggai may point to Yahweh Zevaot being the Lord of hosts of heaven. The divine action in future eschatological perspective in chapter 2 may further explain this point. So these have been the 6 points of my presentation about the Deuteronomistic tradition, about the priestly tradition, about the priestly tradition and the temple theology in Zion tradition, and also the Exodus traditions. And they all, although being presented in line with the old traditions, they all are being used in the book of Haggai with all the creative new aspects as well. So thank you very much. I know the time is already very late, and I hope you enjoy the discussions.
Dr. Chung, thank you so much. That was very interesting. We don't
you.
have any questions, so we will end here. I have a couple of words before we officially finish out. Thank you, everybody who presented today. This was incredibly successful. I think I speak for David and Christian when I say this is more successful than we had dared hope. We will be back again tomorrow, hopefully with another equally successful day of original research and conversation. We will start at 10:15 Eastern Daylight Time, the same time we started at today, same place. We'll be on Digital Hammurabi YouTube, SASA YouTube, SASA Facebook, and I think the Twitch account. If you have watched today and you've enjoyed, there is a feedback form on the SASA website. If you go to saveancientstudies.org/virtual-conference, click on the link that says feedback here. Any comments that you have about the conference, whether you're a participant or a viewer, we'd really love to know what you think so that we can use that feedback to improve for next year. So we will see you all back here tomorrow. Thank you again and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.